Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
All right, Pete, welcome back to Films and Stuff. How are you today?
I am great, Ethan. How are you?
I'm good. Today, it's a stream or skip episode, which means we have each chosen a previously unknown randomized. Thanks for helping me with the vocabulary. A randomized show for each other, and we've agreed to watch at least a few episodes to get an idea of it, and then we share with our listeners whether it is worth streaming or whether it should be skipped.
That's absolutely right. And so far, I think on average, it's not been the most fruitful of endeavors.
You've been choosing better for me than I have for you.
But having said that, that itself also is valuable, right? It's like a science experiment, which is, you can't expect only positive outcomes. Negative outcomes are a result as well. And that just helps us streamline which service we find is better in terms of not just current shows, but, in its backlog as well.
I mean, just to recap for the listeners, you have watched Blackbird on Apple TV Plus, which you thought was exceptional. We've also watched The Dropout on Hulu, which we both liked. I think I liked it a little bit more than you.
Outer Range?
We both found Outer Range on Amazon Prime, which is great. And the real diamond in the rough was The Old Man on Hulu, which we both raved about.
That's right. And that was a complete accident. That wasn't even a stream or skip. That was I'm searching for my stream or skip episode, and then I accidentally stumbled onto The Old Man.
Yeah, it's the opposite of collateral damage. It's like collateral treasure.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. So tell us, what did you get this week? You got something on Netflix, right?
I did. I got Flaked on Netflix. Now, I have never heard of this show. This is a 2-season show on Netflix starring Will Arnett. And Will Arnett, which I think most people will know him as Job from Arrested Development.
I love Job from Arrested Development.
Others will recognize his voice. If you haven't seen him in person, you'll certainly recognize his voice. Yeah. He's got a very distinctive, gravelly voice.
He does like every pickup truck commercial. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So he is the spokesperson, I think, for Chevy. It's either Chevy or GM. I can't remember. Yeah. And he is, in pop culture anyway, he's also the voice of Lego Batman.
Oh, really? Oh, I did know that.
Which has made him rise in the ranks as to the most popular Batman, which is hilarious because, when you think of Batman, you don't think of Will Arnett. But in terms of voiceovers, exactly.
Oh, man, that's too funny.
So yeah, going back to Flaked, I had high hopes for this only because of that. I thought that, this is, Will Arnett in the midst of his run in Arrested Development before, remember it did its reboot / whatever they want to call it.
Came back.
Not a reboot, but they came back.
Yeah.
And so this was just before that. So I had high expectations. I thought that he'd be on form. Flaked is a dramedy, and it's a very dry slice of life kind of. It's not a sitcom. It's not a drama. It's like a mix of both. It's supposedly based on Will Arnett's experiences with alcoholism and sobriety.
Huh. That seems like a very serious topic.
It's a bit dark in terms of topics because of that.
Yeah.
It's set in Venice Beach, California. So, you're talking Southern California, slightly, the West Coast hipster, that kind of vibe. Yeah. And it's what you would kind of expect from a show, which is, and maybe this is on me, but I felt like the show has no real substance. Huh. You're looking at 2 or 3 friends, guy friends, who don't seem to have regular jobs, but seem to be living in, the heart of Venice, California, which isn't exactly the cheapest place in the world.
Nope.
And they're struggling with their sobriety. And they're chasing after women, and you're you have the bro code where one guy's like, no, well, I had my eyes on her first, so you can't see her. And Will Arnett's like, no, I won't chase her. But of course, he is chasing her in his own way. It just seems really meh. It's neither here nor there. It's not a serious drama. It doesn't seem like it's got anything comedic going for it. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me. Have you ever watched BoJack Horseman?
I have not even heard those words together in a sentence.
So that's an animated show also starring Will Arnett.
You could have made that up.
Which is actually a really good show. I recommend it. It is also a dark comedy kind of show, but I think it's much funnier, which is why it, I think, is much more successful. And you must have seen Sideways.
About the Napa? Wine and Napa?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. That's
with
so
Sandra
old,
Oh
but,
and Thomas Hayden Church.
Yes.
On their Bachelor.
And, oh man, what's the other guy who's in there who's now on Billions?
Giamatti? No.
Yes, Paul
Yes,
Giamatti.
it is Paul Giamatti. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a mix of BoJack Horseman and Sideways. And it's kind of like you're looking into one man's downward spiral. Or potentially upward. You don't know. But at the moment, it's downward. It's not for me. I didn't like it. I saw the first 2 episodes. It didn't seem like it was getting going. It just seems like it had its foot on the brakes every time. It's just not my bag.
How many seasons are there?
There's only 2 seasons from what I understand. At least only 2 on Netflix. And I don't know if they renewed it or didn't because this came out just before the pandemic hit. So I don't know if they're going to renew it. I don't know if it was canceled or if it was, if it concluded naturally. I'm not sure. But I think overall, it just didn't do anything for me.
Okay. So it's a skip.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a skip.
Hard
and
skip.
It's not even something that I could say maybe you'll like it. Ethan, I have a feeling that you wouldn't even last an episode.
That's probably about right.
What about you?
I had better luck, and you gave me something called Carnival Row. First of all, hats off to you for giving me something that there's no way I would have ever chosen this. It stars Orlando Bloom. Well, I don't have anything negative against Orlando Bloom, but definitely just kind of looking at the cover art, I absolutely would not have picked this. It's on Amazon Prime, and I think I watched 4 episodes, and I have to say, it's a mooch, but there's really something to it, I have to say. So, I guess the best comparison I can give you, not in terms of plot, but just in terms of the setup, is Game of Thrones. And the reason I say this is that it's set up in a historical time period that to me resembles the Industrial Revolution. Steam engines, telegraphs. There's no mobile phones. There's no computers. All the guns, it's not really a lot of guns, but all the guns are pretty basic, like muskets. So it's kind of that era. And it takes place, I guess, on something that you could call Earth. But it's not like the traditional North America European map. So that's a little bit where it's like Game of Thrones, is that you kind of have to understand the geography first. So the geography of this Earth is set up with kind of 3 continents. What would be North America is in a totally different shape, but it's called Mesogeo. And within the continent of Mesogeo, there's a country called the Republic of Burj. And the capital of Burj is the city, the Burj. And this is where most of the action takes place. So historically, the Republic of Burj was in a war in a different country called Tirnanak. And in Tirnanak, it's not populated by humans. It's populated by something called Fae, F-A-E. And Fae is a catch-all for things that look a lot like humans, but there's a few differences. So, for example, Cara Delevingne, who's the other kind of lead in this, has wings like a fairy, like a little Tinkerbell. Like she's totally normal, human-sized, acts and speaks like a human. You know, like she doesn't speak in a different language. She's English, but she has little fairy wings and she can kind of, lift herself up or propel herself instead of running. You know, she can kind of fly away a little bit. There is this other group that looks kind of like centaurs, where they're humans, men and women, but they have basically like horns, like ram horns on their heads, So these are all fae, and there's many different kinds. So after the Burj was in their country, they eventually pulled out. A different country took over, and a lot of the fae essentially were refugees, and they came to the Republic of Burj to seek refuge. And that's kind of how we get the background of how kind of humans and fae are living together. And then it gets a little bit political, whether intentional or just unintentional parallels. You can kind of see the idea of immigrants leaving a war-torn country, coming to a new country, and, kind of being second-class citizens and taking a lot of, like menial jobs. They're, in a lot of cases, servants. There's obviously a brothel with a lot of very sexy kind of, Cara Delevingne type figures with the fairy wings. And then there's a little bit of like political intrigue. And that's kind of where I am right now. And I have to say, there's definitely something to it. Also, Jared Harris is in it. I know you love Jared Harris. And that gives it a little bit more credibility. I mean, those are pretty big names. Orlando Bloom, Cara Delevingne, Jared Harris. Takes a little bit of like just kind of getting a sense of the geography. Like I had to do a lot of research, and Amazon does have the X-ray feature, but I had to do a lot of research to kind of understand where these countries are, how they fit together, what the background was of the war. So Orlando Bloom previously was a soldier for the Burj, and he was in Tirnanok, and that's how he actually met Cara Delevingne's character. And then, of course, Orlando Bloom, after the war, came back. He became a police inspector. Cara Delevingne obviously escaped as a refuge. Now she's in the same city with him. So, there's going to be like some sparks flying. And I have to say, this models itself after Game of Thrones in the sense that it is adult content. I mean, there is not significant nudity, but there is plentiful nudity. Cara Delevingne herself, can I say, is enthusiastically topless for more than just kind of like a quick cutaway shot. So it's definitely intended kind of like that Game of Thrones, more adult audience. And like I said, it's actually not so bad, but I'm also not fully invested in it. There's no real character that I'm really pulling for. It definitely seems like Orlando Bloom and Cara Delevingne are going to strike up some type of romantic relationship. And obviously, there's going to be some kind of drama where they're from different, classes. So I have to say, it's definitely a solid mooch. There's something to it, but by no means is this an Amazon must subscribe. And actually, when I was doing a little bit of research, this was made in 2019. As far as I'm aware, there's only one season, which kind of indicates to me that either there wasn't a great reception or there was some problems filming, maybe during COVID, and it's going to be delayed. For sure, as is the Amazon way, they've spent enough money on it. I mean, they have not spared expense. It doesn't seem like, I wouldn't say it's like dramatically expensive. I mean, it doesn't have like, the huge fight scenes that you see in some other shows like Game of Thrones or Vikings or something, but certainly they haven't, just filmed it in a gray jail cell or something. It's all over the place in terms of, the scenery. There's a little bit of CGI. Obviously there's some special effects with the Fae flying to and fro. So it's actually not bad. It's actually not bad. I give it, if someone said, hey, I love it, I can't get enough of it, I would not mock them. I would probably say, yeah, I can probably see where you're coming from. If someone said they hated it, they couldn't stand it after the second episode, I'd also probably sympathize with them. I really think it's in the eye of the beholder, but overall, like, I'll probably finish out the first season, but as of now, I'm not like dying to dive into the second season. You know, like there's some shows I've watched, you've been the same. You can't go to bed at night. You're like, I've got to watch one more episode. You know, you can barely keep your eyes open. You've got something really important early the next morning. You're like, I can't stop myself. This is an easy one for me to turn off. And that's kind of like a rating of itself. So that's Carnival Row on Amazon Prime.
Interesting. All right, well, I'm going to give it a go because based on what you've said, it might be interesting.
Yeah. At a minimum, like it the same level that I like it, possibly more. But I don't think that you'll like it less than I like it. Does that make sense?
So this is how I felt about Sandman as well, right? Which is I loved it, and I was quite confident that you would either like it or love it, but I didn't think you would dislike it.
Yeah. Yep, that's about right. So in any case, that is this week's stream or skip. We've got one clear skip and Flaked. We've got one, give it a try, mooch on Carnival Row.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll give it a go this week.
So Pete, before we go, should we roll our virtual dice and see what we've got for next week?
That's a great idea.
We may also need to, maybe we can commit to this next week. We may need to update our list because...
we definitely have to. I had to roll a couple times to get a new roll for myself. In any case...
Roll the dice.
For next week, you will be watching, my friend, Pachinko on Apple TV+.
Ooh.
A Korean drama which had been getting rave reviews. As
every Korean show gets.
I was just about to say, I think this is like the last 2 or 3 years has kind of been like the era of Korean drama, whether it's Squid Games or Pachinko or Minari. There's been a lot.
There was that other one. There was also that other one where the family went into like the wealthy person's house. What is that called?
Oh, Parasite.
Yeah.
And that's just recently. If you think about classics, there's other older shows. You know, we saw, I think, Dr. Brain. We saw.
Oh yeah, Dr. Brain.
Then there was Train to Busan. There's quite a few, not just dramas, but action movies. So I think the Korean version of Hollywood, whatever their film industry is called, is getting a lot of its dues now. And I'm glad to see that.
All right, my friend, what are you choosing for yourself?
I have gotten Sense8 also on Netflix.
Oh, I'm so happy actually you got that because I really want you to see it and tell me if that's good because it looks okay.
Okay, well, good. I'm looking forward to that then. Yeah, let's see. So we've got Pachinko and Sense8 coming for you guys in a week from now.
And then we will update the list and have an even broader selection. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you guys next week.
We'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.